looks like we have absolutely everybody from a council perspective, so I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning into tonight's work session. Work sessions are conducted to provide the City Council with introductory information, opportunities to provide staff guidance, and to facilitate initial conversations on a topic. No votes are taken. As such, there is not an opportunity provided for members of the community to provide comments or ask questions during a work session. Those interested in providing comments to the City Council or on any city-related topic are encouraged to participate in the community comment during the regular meeting via Zoom that begins at 7 o'clock. Information related to joining the Zoom conferencing services can be found on the city's website or attached to the agenda for this meeting. The meeting is also available via the city's website by clicking on the video link under upcoming meetings on the home page at cityofcarver.com. All right. So I don't know that we have our applicant yet.
And just to be clear, Mayor and Council, the meeting is still open to the public in a physical setting. The council chamber is still open.
Okay.
So if we have folks that wanted to participate for the work session, they still have that ability to do that. I think I'm suspecting Brenda Good is working on contacting the applicant. So
yes,
if it's right with the Mayor and Council, I'll move on with the CARES Act Assistance Program.
Yeah, that sounds good. I know that Brenda is not even making eye contact. She's working so feverishly to get in touch with our applicant. So go ahead, Brent. We can talk about the CARES Act assistance programs.
Sure. Thank you. At the Council's July 20th meeting, you were briefed on federal funding allocation of approximately $356,000 related to the COVID-19 pandemic, or specifically called the Coronavirus Relief Fund, CRF. It's designed to help the entities that are struggling because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Eligible expenses related to the funding supporting organizations that are having additional costs in helping fight that pandemic. And so using that $356,000, we separated in some areas for expenses, so that would be related to face masks, sneeze guards, the fire department and public services department are looking at some upgraded fixtures in the fire station building, in the restroom, so they can be touchless, faucets and paper towel dispensers, etc. So we'll have costs related to that. But the council is also interested in creating a business assistance program and a housing stability program. And I put together a real rough outline of a potential way that you could spend that money that you'll see under the financial section. So approximately $110,000 related to inner office or intergovernmental expenses related to the city, $128,000 for the business assistance program, and $120,000 for the housing stability program. And so to get into a little bit of the details with the business emergency assistance program, we modeled it after the CDA's program. The CDA also has money that when they're running essentially what's a lottery system where businesses can apply for funding, or what they're calling a beneficiary payment of up to $10,000. But how this would work is if a Carver business applied for that program and wasn't selected, then they'd be eligible to get city funding should the council choose to proceed with that. So we're looking at $120,000 contribution or allocation, up to $10,000 for a beneficiary payment. Under the current program, we'd exclude home occupations and home-based businesses, but eligible expenses would include payroll, rent, mortgage payments, utilities, payments to suppliers, and other non-payroll business expenses. As you can imagine, by looking through the program, there's a lot of intricacies and details with administering a program like this, and something that we're frankly not experienced enough in to probably run successfully. And so we are proposing to work with a partner of the Carver County CDA called Next Stage. It's the same group that The gentleman's name is Lee Hall. He runs the county's open to business program. So they're willing to administer the program for a 5% administration. So Karen Smith and I, along with Elise Durbin from the county CDA, essentially put this program together. And we wanted to get some feedback from the council on things you think might be missing or need to be added or deleted, or frankly, if you would have an interest in spending this funding in this way. So with that, I'm going to pause the Business Emergency Assistance Program before I get into the housing part of this proposal. Are there any questions from the mayor council?
All right, go ahead, Glenn.
Have any of the businesses reached out to us yet to see if there's any type of assistance available to them?
Yes. I haven't kept a database, but since March, I would say there's been maybe a half a dozen or so businesses that have reached out just asking what's available. We've also done a little bit of outreach if there are certain businesses that we feel like they're in unique situations. So talk to some of the bars, you know, for example, Children of Tomorrow, Carver Dental, just kind of touching base. I'm sure there are some that we missed, and I'm sure there are some folks that maybe aren't as open to sharing with others outside of the organization that they may be struggling. So we probably don't have an accurate count on who and how they've been impacted related to the pandemic.
Do they have until July 8th or September 18th to make the applications? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, we would start, the council would approve the program on the 17th, and we'd open up the application period that same day, because it doesn't hurt to start accepting the applications. And then the deadline, I'd have to search for that, I think is September 4th. And
Okay.
The funds, to my understanding, have to be spent by November 15th.
Okay.
Under kind of the federal program requirements.
Go ahead, Christy.
Brent, so if if we're going to be having the CDA administer this program, are we assured that the funds will be used only in Carver, or do we put them into a pot and they distribute as they like?
A couple of things. So one would be, it's a kind of a partner of the CD. So the CD wouldn't be administering it for us, it would be their partner. But to the germane part of your question, yes, it would be specifically and exclusively for City of Carver businesses. So, you know, it couldn't be a Dahlgren Township. They'd have to be in the city proper to be eligible for this program.
Okay, and then let's say we don't spend it all. Do we give it back? How does that work?
So we wouldn't kind of hand it over to them. They would kind of process it, and then their internal system. So, for example, business XYZ applied for the funds. They submitted all the paperwork. The next stage, they're eligible. The next stage would contact us and say, we have business XYZ has met all the requirements. Please issue a check for $10,000 to this company. So we hold on to the money until we get documentation that we have an eligible business that's met all the qualifications.
Okay, but let's just say for 120,000 of it, we only have people who apply and receive 100,000. What happens to that leftover 20?
So the money stays with the city. It could be spent. The council could redirect it to the housing stability program. We could have additional expenses through the city for precautionary measures or safety, public health measures, etc. Long story short, though, any of that money that's not spent needs to be returned to the federal government.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joy.
Is it a first come, first serve as we issue it out?
Yes.
Okay. That's my only question.
Okay. Lori, any questions from you? No? Glenn, did you have another question? Go ahead.
Yes, is there a deadline to, send the money back to the feds? If not used by this date?
Yeah, my understanding is the money related to all this needs to be spent by the 15th of November. There's volumes of information on it, so I'm using the November 15th. There are probably circumstances that I haven't got into yet where you can use it through the end of the year. But I know for certain as it relates to these programs, November 15th is the deadline. And just kind of as some background, there's a very intricate reporting process. Kathy, Elke, and I participated in a League of Cities webinar with the Department of Revenue on how they want these funds to be accounted for. There's a certain software program that Kathy will be working with to input the data and how the money's spent. So it'll be tracked fairly extensively. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Christy.
Is there a max that a person or a business can apply for? I asked because let's say we have a lot of people, but if it's first come first serve and we run out, if we're giving somebody a large chunk, but then other people are getting smaller chunks, so that's all that's left. Do we have a process for that? Yeah,
the max right now is $10,000, and so theoretically you could fund up to 12 businesses. Under what we currently have, it'd be we'd be looking for feedback either to affirm that amount with the council or to change it in some way.
So it'd be actually a little bit less though, because that 5% administrative fee that CDA's representatives need, is that going to come out of this?
Nope, that's added to the council. So.
Okay, I'm saying because the city is not going to be on the hook then out of our tax dollars to pay that 5% administrative fee?
Correct. That administration charge, which by my calculation, $6,000 would also be CARES Act eligible. So $120,000 would go to. We had 12 businesses that qualified. Send out $120,000 in that business assistance, and then $6,000 for the administration to next stage. So it'd be a total of $126,000 out of the 300. Nearly 60 of CARES Act funding.
Okay, so then we have, did you say that the $6,000 for the next stage, that's the administrative fee that we're accounting for?
Correct.
So then if we have the two programs running, is that $6,000 enough to cover those admin fees?
So the CDA graciously offered to administer the housing program since that's kind of their main mission to do that free of charge.
Okay, so. Great. Thanks.
Erin, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, we just got a comment on the city's Facebook page that the meeting code or the meeting ID and passcode aren't working. Courtney, can you read the most recent one out just so people can log into Zoom?
Yes, I sure can, if you give me a second here.
Or I can read it, I have it up.
Yeah, if you could, you can probably get to it quicker.
The meeting ID is 811-9470-1221, and passcode is 676642.
And you'll share that on the Facebook page.
Oops, I'm sorry. Are we responding on Facebook with that? Because if they can't get in the meeting, they won't hear the numbers from us.
Yeah, my Facebook, I think it's been too long since I logged into my city account that it's not letting me in right now, so I'll post it as myself, but yes, I will do that.
Well, Brenda can do it too. Brenda's running.
Watch this on Granicus, so they're probably watching live stream.
Yeah.
So again, if you're watching on Granicus, I apologize profusely for the technical issues that we had. We had to switch some of the details for the meeting. So the meeting number for tonight is 811-947-01221, and then the passcode is 676642. Again, the meeting number 811-947-01221, with the password being 676642. or two. Okay, thank you, Erin. I'm sorry, who was asking the last question? Christy, are you good? Okay, Christy's good. So I think for me, sorry, I have to get back into my packet here. So I think my questions are, I just want to make sure that that 110, 133 will cover all of the city's costs and everything that we anticipate having between kind of now and November 15th. And I know that it's really, really stringent on what we can use it for and what we can't use it, but that is the ceiling of what we can use out of that, the CARES Act money from a city perspective.
I would say it's our best assumption based on the information that we have available to us now.
Okay. And then my question is the administrative fee from Next Stage, is that a reimbursable cost?
Yes.
Okay. And we're sure that all of the business assistance program and even the housing stability program, that those are approved and reimbursable?
Yes.
Okay. I think that, sorry, I'm just trying to go through my notes here.
There was, if I could,
Sure.
we have Elise Durbin on the line with the Carver County CDA, and I know Council Member McKnight had a question from earlier today, and I was hoping I could get Elise to comment on it. It related to it's on page 2, Elise, if you have it in front of you. It discusses residents receiving subsidized housing or other rental assistance are not eligible for this service. Those who have utilized other forms of emergency assistance for the current month do not qualify for the current month. Is that our intention on the housing stability program, or for folks that are on unemployment, that they not be eligible as well?
Sure, I can go ahead and answer, Mayor and council members. Sorry, my name's Tabitha on here. And didn't have time to log out and log back in. But to answer that question, really we're trying to get around, if you're living in subsidized housing, in a lot of cases, or in some cases, if you're in Section 8 or something like that, if your income changes, then the amount that you pay also changes. Therefore, we are trying to avoid some of those programs where those changes would be made because of a change in income. It does not include unemployment. If you are receiving unemployment, that counts. It's just if you would get CARES funds from another source, or something like that. That's really what we're trying to exclude, is that potential double dipping of other CARES funds.
Got it, thank you. That addresses my concern.
And then, Elise, since you have the floor, would you just mind giving kind of an overview of and I did already, but I think you'll do a better job of who Next Stage is and how they function within or as a partner to the CDA?
Certainly. So Next Stage is a business assistance group. They're really helping with entrepreneurs trying to grow businesses. The CEO of that program is Lee Hall, and you may have heard that name before. Lee used to work with the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, MCCD, who runs the Open to Business program here in Carver County. And so Lee was a part of them. He has broken off and he has done his own company. And what we are trying to do is work with him. He has put together a proposal, and we will be working with him to administer the program. He has done similar programs in Hennepin County. So Hennepin County was one of the first counties, or the first county, to roll out a program like this. They recently rolled out Dakota County's program, which is very similar to this as well. So they have the software, they have the tools, they understand the federal regulations, hence the reason why the CDA we'll be working with Next Stage.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions as it relates to the business emergency fund? All right. Is this something that we have consensus that this is a path we would like to take with our CARES funding? See a nod from Lori and Joy.
Yes.
Okay, I hear Christy. Then I think we know where you stand on this.
Yep.
But I am in favor of going down this path. So, all right. Brent, do you want to do an overview of the housing side of things?
Sure. So, similar to the business assistance program, the housing stability program provides a beneficiary payment of up to $5,000 for expenses related to rent, a security deposit, mortgage payments, utilities, and homeowners association dues. As I mentioned, Elise and the CDA staff have graciously offered to provide no-cost administration of this program, which will be helpful and I think a great way to establish a partnership and to help out folks in the city. Again, this would be for city residents only, so you'd have to have a city of Carver address. And then CDA staff would work on administering the program, working with applicants, and it would be, again, it would be done on a first come, first served basis. So happy to answer any questions, and I know Elise is available to answer any as well. Thank you.
Questions? Go ahead, Glenn.
Have any residents come forth with it, looking for any type of assistance? Any phone calls that anybody's answered?
Not to my knowledge.
And this is 5,000 per household that's available?
Correct.
And we will be administering, we will be cutting the checks or the funds, and the CDA will be the ones that will be doing the background and research into it, correct?
Correct.
Those are my questions.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. So, Elise, I so badly want to keep calling you Tabitha. I'm sorry. I assume that these qualifications are kind of standard through other housing support programs you're doing. But to me, they seem a little restrictive, especially if we're trying to help folks who are experiencing a loss of income. You know, for me, the median income restrictions seem, can you kind of, I guess, maybe I don't understand that. Can you explain how that's determined? Because, you know, if somebody was had a job and was making good money last year, that could be very different this year, you know, since the COVID crisis has kind of struck. So how is that taken into account?
Certainly, Mayor and council members, we plan to look at what that household income was essentially March 1st. So if they were at that 115% AMI or below as of March 1st, and then have the regulations talk about needing to prove that they've been affected by COVID. So somebody in their household has had COVID, they've lost income due to COVID. You know, I'm sure we haven't accounted for all of the reasons out there, and we'll find out as we launch the program. But really, they have to be able to kind of prove those two things. The 115% AMI is certainly a number that a lot of counties are using as far as their home ownership. Rental assistance, we've actually seen a lot lower income, and so we've tried to make sure that we're even and we're hitting those renters that were probably able to certainly afford their rent before this hit, but because of, you know, whatever circumstance they may have experienced, we're able to help them here. So, you know, as your own city program, you certainly have the ability to look at what that percent AMI is that you would like to have covered, and we can certainly administer whatever the city direction is on.
And this would be a program that would be open through probably November for folks to apply and not a deadline based.
Correct. We plan to take applications starting next Monday, the 10th. And obviously, if a Carver resident came forward at that time before you, made your final decisions, we'd cover them under the CDA funds. But then we plan to keep it open until we run out of money.
Okay.
Or until approximately kind of that November 1st, because we also, as the CDA, have a deadline to return funds back to the county as well.
Okay. How nimble can we be with the qualifications, and probably in both instances, if we start down this path and we get 0 applicants or people reaching out and don't qualify for reason number, whatever, 1 through 6 on this list? Can we work and be reactive to that feedback and the needs of folks in our community and make changes as we're moving along in the process?
Certainly. I think that's why we have the disclaimer at the bottom of the guidelines there that says we reserve the right to change these guidelines as things move on depending upon what happens. I think we've been given such a short period of time in which to put these programs together that we're not quite sure, how this might happen. And so, if we see, a week or 2 in, we're not getting any applications, and we go out and find out why, and we need to make some adjustments, we certainly would look at doing that. And I think, with your program, we'll take a look at everything and we'll report back to Brent, and he can then inform you as to what decisions you would like to make.
Yeah, if there is any significant program changes, though, we wouldn't take it to the council. I wouldn't feel comfortable adjusting like income limits without the consent of the council. So we'd stay in close contact with police and the CDA staff, and if the funds aren't being used, it'd be up to the council to determine to either relax restrictions or just say, or maybe take a position that the funds are needed for the group that you want to serve and elect to return them or use them in a different area, etc.
Go ahead, Christy.
So when I'm looking at the qualifications, so number 2, it says has a household income, and it's saying about 118,000 for household of 4. So just trying to understand how they're very, very different. So what if, 115, so you said other counties aren't doing this, but where did this number come from, I guess? Is there a standard that we're following, or we're just sort of seeing that it's working in some other counties, or that's what they're going for, so that's the number we decided to give a try?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor and council member. We use that 115% because a lot of actually home ownership programs, their maximum income limit for different programs is 115% AMI. And so we base that number on the family size. So if you have a larger family, that income limit or that actual number goes up, and if you have a smaller household, that number goes down. So because we decided to kind of look at that home ownership and what a lot of programs do with that, that's why we chose that specific 115% number.
Okay, so does this amount change for a household of 2 or a household of 8? Okay, it's just not all listed here.
Correct. And I don't have it in front of me to tell you what those numbers are, but they adjust either down from that number if you're a household of 3, 2, or 1, and not by a lot. You're talking, $85,000 to $90,000 for a household of 1 or 2, and then it goes up obviously with more than 4.
All right. I have a question that's a little bit outside of this program, but you might be able to answer it. So we're looking at subsidized housing or Section 8 housing, I believe you mentioned that should they be losing a job or things like that, that what they receive from the county towards their, I'm probably using the wrong term, towards their rent credit, I guess, or whatever what you call it, does that adjust also with the loss of their job, or how does that work outside of this program?
Certainly, Mayor and Councilmember. How it works, usually if you have a Section 8 voucher, they take a look at what income, and you pay 30% of your income toward rent. And then the voucher essentially then closes the gap between what that rent is and what you can pay. So if you lose your job or you become, underemployed from what you were before, that number that you pay goes down because you would no longer pay, 30% of that higher salary. You have a lower salary and you pay 30% of whatever your income is. So those figures on such things as a Section 8 voucher automatically adjust as your income adjusts.
Okay. And then do you feel comfortable? I know you said that it would be, monitored because of the double dipping. Do you feel confident that if there was any of these that someone might double dip or try to double dip on, that you would be able to catch that, especially if the county, the subsidized part of it from the county?
Certainly, Mayor and Council Member, yes, we have, the county will have a small pot of funds as well through their Health and Human Services Department. And we've actually been working with them, so it's a seamless process. There's only one application to fill out. And that way then it prevents double dipping between the county program and the CDA program. And additionally, we know there are some potential other programs out there, and we're already talking with the program administrators. So it's about, making sure we understand who's applying to each program. So we've kind of figured it out at the county level at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Larry. You probably need to come up to be heard at least. Oh, and turn on the mic, sorry.
I have a compliance question as it relates to what data the CDA will be compiling in order to ensure that the funds given out in these grants are used for eligible expenses only. The problem under the CARES Act is everybody downstream is responsible for who they send the money downstream to. And if funds get used for inappropriate purposes and there's audits after the fact, my concern as a city attorney is that the feds are going to come looking at the city. They're not going to go look at Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So maybe you could just talk about that a little bit.
Glenn, did you not hear that?
Yeah, I was really garbled.
So he's essentially concerned about who is going to get in trouble if these funds aren't distributed correctly. Is that layman's speak? Who the feds will come after?
Well, no, my concern is making sure that the funds are spent appropriately by the grant recipients. It's a great program, but we all saw the one in the paper the other day. It's not like for $5,000 you can buy a Lamborghini like the guy in Miami did, but with PPP dollars. But the issue here is the program sets up authorized expenses, which Brent asked me to look at, and they match with what the CARES Act says, but it's the compliance burden and making sure that the money's actually spent by the grantee for what the purpose of the grant is, because if it's not, I think the city has some exposure.
It's my understanding, and Elise, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the payments aren't made to the resident. The payments are made to the mortgage company, the utility company, etc.
Larry looks satisfied with that answer from what I can see of his eyes.
That's a good answer.
He says it's a good answer. Okay. Glenn, are you clear on what was just asked?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, concerns? None. Okay. Any objections to moving forward with this? I see no from Christy. I see a no from Lori and Joy. All right. And I have no objections either. Brent, do you have what you need from us for this?
Yeah, we'll come back with the programs for the council to consider for adoption, and then I'll work with Elise on. We'll probably have some simple cooperative agreements with the CDA and next stage as far as the administration goes for your review as well. Your meeting on the 17th.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Elise slash Tabitha, for joining us. I appreciate you being able to clarify things for us. So have a great evening. All right.
Thanks, Elise.
Let's see now. So we're going to move on to item number 2 on the agenda, the HPC Commission interview. So I am joined by Samantha. Let's see. Sorry, Samantha Peterson.
Yes.
So welcome. I'm sorry. This is weird and wonky. So my apologies, and I'm sorry we had some pretty significant, as you know, technical snafus in trying to get into the meeting tonight. So you weren't the only one. We were all kind of scrambling and nervous and trying to get in. So I appreciate you being able to be so nimble and come down here. So what we do for this is we just kind of go through and have a super easy standard set of questions. And I think what we'll do, Council, why don't we kind of go how we generally do and kind of go around the virtual room, if you will, and introduce yourself. So my name is Courtney Johnson. I'm the mayor of the city of Carver. Lori, do you want to go next? And if you want to sit over, do you want to sit over there so you don't have to crane back?
Sure, that might be easier.
Okay. So, sorry, Mike. We're going to move her. Oh. Okay. Lori, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Oh, Lori, we can't hear you. She's saying, hi, my name is Lori Sayer, and I'm a city council member. All right, Joy, do you want to go next?
Or I'm Joy McKnight, and I'm a city council member.
Glenn?
Glenn Henry, Carver City Council member.
Christy? You're on mute, Christy.
So I was unmuted before. We'll get it. Hi, Christy Mock, council member.
It's okay, Christy. You know I'll make something up if you aren't able to. All right, Brent, do you want to go?
Hi, Brent Merrick, City Manager.
Aaron?
Erin Smith, Community Development Director.
Chad?
Chad Shell, Public Services Director.
All right. So what I will do you guys, I wonder if it isn't easier for me to ask all the questions. You good with that? Okay. Okay, so generally, again, we go around the room, but strange days. So, Samantha, can you just start and briefly introduce yourself, please? And if you want, just hold down the microphone so that you're speaking into it, and that'll be how folks hear you.
Okay. My name is Samantha Peterson, and I'm a new resident of Carver. Me and my boyfriend just bought a house in March. I am an interior designer and from Cold Spring, Minnesota. So I grew up on the lake and kind of just loving to do all things outdoors.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Carver. I'm glad that you're getting so engaged so early on in your time here. The second question is, why would you like to be a member of the Historic Preservation Commission? Why did you apply?
I wanted to be a part of it. I think Carver is very special in all of the history that we have here in the community, and just I want to be a part of keeping it the way that it is, and not very many places are like this, so I've always been interested in history and interior design as well, so I think that kind of fits in with everything that I enjoy doing.
Cool, thank you. What do you feel is the role of the HPC?
I feel like the role of the HPC is to, like I said, help preserve the history of Carver, but also do it in a way that allows, homeowners to have some sort of say. We're not just, it's their house too, trying to find a way to make the community happy and preserve the history and the city.
Great, thank you. Let's see, in terms of historic preservation, what do you think is positive about the actions the city has taken, and what do you think can be improved upon?
I think they've done a really good job, like I said, of keeping everything, up to date and trying not to let everything get too run down, so it's falling apart. Maybe something that can be improved, I've heard just from some residents where everything's so strict, where they choose to just not come to the commission because it's easier to just do it and then ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So just finding a way to balance that.
Okay, thank you. What personal strengths will you bring to the HPC?
I think my background in interior design will help a lot. But I don't know, I learned a lot just working with people and kind of how, if you have to tell them something they don't necessarily want to hear, a good way to do that, and kind of try to spin it as positively as possible. And then I've just always loved history and, homes in general, so kind of that.
Awesome. Final question is a super easy one. The HPC meets on the second Tuesday of the month. Would you be able to consistently attend the meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Then do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so.
Okay. I believe that we are going to be, I don't see that this is on the agenda for tonight for us to talk
Yes.
about.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
it's a council prerogative because what you've traditionally done is interviewed, and if you are so inclined, added it to your, as an agenda item at the regular meeting.
Okay, thank you. So generally, it's an agenda item when we do this in the spring and kind of do our annual nominations of folks. So we will talk about this later on at our council meeting, which starts at 7. Okay, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to zoom in. You're welcome to wait until you get an email from Brent later tonight or early tomorrow or tomorrow morning. So totally up to you. But okay, that's all of our questions. Thank you so much for coming out. And again, thank you for being so nimble and coming here in these strange days with masks and all that kind of good stuff. So.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll probably just wait for an email then.
Okay. Fair enough. Sounds good.
Yes, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too. All right. Let's move on to item number 4 on the agenda, the deaf child sign ordinance. Mr. Merrick.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. The city received a resident request earlier this year for the placement of a deaf child area sign. However, the city didn't really have a consistent or equitable way, to process such a request. And unfortunately, the families had to wait a bit. We had a change in staff, COVID-19 hit, and so this hasn't been handled in kind of the most expeditious way. So I appreciate the residents and that family being patient with the city. The ordinance that's we're bringing you tonight for discussion would require a verification of the hearing impairment by a medical professional, and then also require an application process that would need to be renewed every 3 years. And we added the renewal provision. Oftentimes, there is a need, and then either that child grows up or family moves out of the area, and then folks are often wondering, I think. At one point, the city had someone who was blind, and there was a sign there, but it was somebody that lived there in the 80s, and that sign just kind of perpetually stayed there. So we did add that renewal piece. I did work with the family that had initially requested it and made some modifications to the ordinance. The council is so inclined. We plan for this to be considered by you at your regular meeting on the 17th. So in your packet is the draft ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Go ahead, Christy.
Brent, when I'm looking at D and F, so under D it says that the signage shall remain for 1 year after installation and subject to renewal. And then under renewal it says to renew every 3 years.
Yeah, so it should
There's
say.
a little gap there.
Yeah.
So,
That's just, initially it was 1, and we worked with the family, so that just needs to be corrected in that one spot.
so D will go to remain for 3 years as well?
Correct.
Okay, that is all I had then.
Glenn, was that the same thing you had?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Lori, Joy? Head shakes for now. Brent, I think my only question, I think this is good, and I appreciate you working on this, and again, you kind of went over this, but my apologies for the family for this not moving quite as expeditiously as one would expect, or perhaps it should have. But my question is just more logistics of the sign. where will the sign be placed? At the lot line, at the entrance to the neighborhood? Kind of, is there any regulation as far as that goes?
So traditionally those signs are, so we always try to place signs on lot lines to avoid, frankly, neighborhood issues with someone having a sign in like their picture window or kind of a first world problem. Who's gonna have to trim around that sign? So technically put it on the lot line, and typically the signs are placed near or at where the child lives, because that's where kind of the greatest impact is going to be. That putting it kind of in an arbitrary spot, even if it's maybe at the technically at the what maybe the unofficial area of the neighborhood or entrance of the neighborhood, the driver theoretically doesn't know where in that neighborhood, and so having that sign where they need to maybe be the most cautious is typically what's done. I would say kind of with that, and I know that the family, anybody who really is interested in signs of this sort recognize, but I think I just need to say it out loud, is these are really warning signs, and typically, as I think the council knows and most folks know, that it'll likely be noticed initially, and then it will kind of blend into the landscape. Hopefully it does some good, but I do have to say that it's probably not a cure-all for it'll help. It'll remind the good drivers, but it'll likely do little to help the people that are responsible with their driving in the neighborhood anyway. So just had to say that, because this is when we made a request to kind of consult with other cities. There are cities that won't put these signs up. It's kind of similar to putting like a crosswalk up. Putting a crosswalk up tells the walker where to go, and the walker has the right of way. But ultimately, the car will win, in that situation if the driver doesn't stop. And so there are some cities in the county, namely two, where they won't put up these types of warning signs because they think it gives either the walker or the deaf child or someone who has a visual impairment a false sense of security. So there are two schools of thought on this. We're proposing to place the sign, but I just kind of wanted to add that context for the council's consideration.
I appreciate that context, Brent, and understand that this is more of a warning and not an enforcement kind of sign. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Would like to see any modifications to the draft ordinance?
No, looks good to me. I appreciate, Brent, that you took the time to review this with the family who's applying as well. That's good feedback to get up front. I think the 3 years is certainly very appropriate. I wouldn't want to see anything less than that, but that seems right.
Christy, Lori, Glenn, any comments? No. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Do you have what you need from us on that, Brent?
Yes. So I'll be on your agenda for the 17th for adoption.
Perfect. All right. Moving on to item number 5, the city manager's report.
I do not have anything tonight, council.
Okay. Number 6, city council requests. Is there anything that you would like Brent or city staff to look into and bring back?
The only thing I want to comment is that once we get the CARES Act implemented, Brent, if we can just make sure that for every council update, we get an update on applicants, how much money we've handed out, how many applicants there were, maybe how many were rejected, just so that we can keep a close eye on that, in case we do want to reallocate or rethink some of the qualifications.
Sure. Good idea.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Christy, Lori, Glenn? See nothing from Glenn. Okay. Nothing from Christy, nothing from Lori. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? Mr. Barrett, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Hi, Christy Mack.
Councilmember Sayer,
Hi, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
Hi, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right. Thank you all. See you at 7.
Thanks.
Brent, before you